Hello there. My name is Jonathan Friedman, and you're listening to FAQs by EHN Canada. This is a show where we scour the internet for the most frequently asked questions, or FAQs, about mental health and addiction, and ask an expert for their answers and responses to them. Today, it is my pleasure to have not one, but two amazing guests. We have Rand Teed and Kira Novak. I'm so excited to have you both here today, and I'd love to learn a bit more about who you are, what you do, and if you can share some of that with our lovely, lovely audience. Rand, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. My name is Rand Teed. I wear all sorts of hats. I'm an internationally certified prevention specialist. I'm a certified addictions counselor. I'm a teacher, an author, a person in long-term recovery, and I do a lot of work trying to help people understand this stuff. So I'm happy to be here.
We are happy to have you here, Rand. And we have Kira, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for the past couple of years, but for our audience who doesn't yet know you.
Perfect. Thanks, Jonathan. My name's Kira Novak. I too am someone in recovery, and a big reason for that is because of Ranteed. I currently work at EHN Canada and moving into the director of operations at Edgewood Nanaimo. But not long ago, I'm actually was a patient at Edgewood Nanaimo, and I'm currently an alumni. Ranteed was one of the people that guided me into recovery and through the doors of Edgewood and helped me stay in recovery. Him and I have remained very, very close since then. So close that he's my sponsor, my mentor, and my second dad.
Wow, what a lovely group we have here today. And this isn't one of the official questions at all. And if you're only if you're comfortable, like when you're leaving treatment, when you're leaving EHN Edgewood Nanaimo, how do you find someone like Rand? Where do you connect with the Rands of the world to take those next steps in your recovery journey?
Well, for in my circumstance, he was my aftercare counselor. So my EHN aftercare counselor was. So that's one of the big reasons why I got connected to him. Um, but I mean, I think being a part of recovery meetings is a huge piece. Being connected to recovery, and I mean, I think one big thing that Rand teaches as well, what you put out into the world is what you'll get back. And so he's someone that I needed, and he came.
And I'm chuckling because Kira doesn't actually remember I helped her get in there, but she was her prefrontal cortex wasn't operating well enough to remember the conversations we had before she went.
Mhm. Yeah, I wasn't my best self. It's why I came into Edgewood.
Yeah. Well, and I mean that's why we get where we're getting is because the self that we're operating from isn't as good as we want to be.
So, what do those conversations sound like? And Rand, like with your and Kira, I'm sure you too. Like with both of your experience, like you've both been in the space for a long time. Like, what are some of those early conversations you have with people? What do they sound like? What are the questions you ask to help somebody bridge the gap into treatment or to exploring treatment?
Well, I mean it's interesting because people always think that they don't really need to go, that they think they can do it themselves, that they can figure it out, and that if they stop showing up at work or something, like the whole business is going to collapse because they're the only person that can keep everything going there. And that's typically not true. So the conversations, like from my end, are usually about, well, are you happy? Are things working well? Are you getting done what you really want to get done? And the answers are often, well, no, because I missed 3 days of work this week because I was hungover or high or whatever. And I didn't want to go in that way. And then you can help people move to that spot where maybe I need to take a break. Like the idea of quitting is frightening for people because their drug of choice has become the only thing that really works for them in terms of managing how they feel. So the idea of taking that away is frightening. And so part of helping people move into uh, rethinking that is really around, let's think about taking a break. Let's see how that feels. And that takes some of the fear away from it because it isn't making that instant determination that I got to quit this forever.
And when that barrier is removed and you are experiencing how you feel, what's some of the initial feedback that you get from some individuals who you've coached through those first steps or to give it a try, when it's medically safe, of course, or versus like, 3 weeks down the road or a couple months down the road? Does that feedback change?
How did that feedback change for you, Kira?
Um, I actually, when you asked this question, Jonathan, I remember one of the conversations that I had with Rand. Um, Maybe when I was like 4 months in to recovery. Um, and I said, I was struggling. Like it's hard to feel for the first time. Like I hadn't truly felt and been alive and awake um in a long time. And I told Rand like this is so hard. Like I don't know if it's worth it. And I broke down. I was sitting in my car. Um and do you remember that, Rand, and kind of what you said in return?
Well, what I usually say, and I believe what I said to you was what this is a good sign. This is a sign that your brain is starting to heal. That being able to feel these things is the first step in uh, really starting to understand that you are getting better. And what recovery offers us is a chance to learn how to manage that stuff uh, without an artificial crutch.
And the thing that I think you also told me, and you're not afraid to tell me, is um, like kind of kick yourself in the ass and say, get to work. Like it's hard. It is, and it's okay. Um, and this is a sign that, yeah, you need to go to your meetings. You need to stay connected. You need to work hard.
We often look at, and what I've really learned since I've started here at EHN, and it's interesting because my background is actually as a child and youth counselor. I've been in mental health in one shape or another for my entire adult life, and I've learned so much about um, addiction here. And part of what I've learned is that yes, there's the addiction piece, but often it does operate as that sort of middle level between where somebody's at and really like what are all of those feelings and how that drug of choice is used to support or mask artificially like what's really going on. So that's really interesting. I appreciate both of your vulnerability there. Today we're going to be talking about cannabis, and cannabis is really interesting because I just anecdotally, I don't have the research to back this one up, but anecdotally, I feel like a lot of people who may be sober from alcohol or other drugs actually kind of lean into cannabis. And in early conversations, as we started planning out this podcast with Rand and Kira, and we started talking about cannabis, I'm like, wow, that's like, there's really a lot to talk about here. Because in my mind, I kind of saw it as a low risk thing as well. So, the first question I have today as we dive into this topic is it's seen as low risk cannabis. What are you seeing in terms of cannabis addiction in real life? And does it operate differently than other drugs of choice? Ren, why don't we start with you?
Well, one of the things that I've been saying for a long time is the name of the drug doesn't matter. We tend to categorize things as not as bad as or worse or whatever. And if the drug that you're using is separating you from reality, then it is a problem. And cannabis is extremely good at separating us from reality, but it has that reputation of being a soft drug or not as bad as. And a lot of that comes out of the 1960s cannabis, which was like 8 or 9% THC and equal amounts of CBD for the most part. And the cannabis that's around now is considerably stronger and has a considerably um, bigger impact on brain function. And so people who stop using alcohol or stop smoking crack or stop doing cocaine or whatever, uh, and Kira talked about this a couple of minutes ago, will start feeling uncomfortable because they are starting to feel their feelings. And cannabis is exceptionally good at uh, being an emotional anesthetic. And so people will start to use it because it takes away that feeling of reality that they're finding uncomfortable. And but then they tell themselves that, well, this is okay because they've heard the California sober thing or they've heard the marijuana maintenance talk, those kinds of issues. But it's an incredibly complicated drug, and it has huge impacts on all sorts of parts of our brain. But most of the time, we don't pay attention to that. We just pay attention to, well, I like how this feels. And we'll tell ourselves, well, I'm doing it because I like it, or I'm doing it because it makes me feel better. But the reality is, it's making you feel less. So we're less engaged, less attached to what's going on around us.
I think like one thing I'm reflecting on, like in the question versus your answer, is when I use the word risks. Pardon my lisp. That's hard. That's a hard word to say. But when I was mentioning the risks, immediately I'm thinking of like what are the physical pieces that are going on? What are the physical risks? And when I think of the differences in the physical risk of smoking crack cocaine versus taking an edible marijuana gummy, to me, like the risks are like very, very different. But what you're talking about is a very different kind of risk where, regardless of the drug of choice, it acts as a mask of all of those underlying social things. And in fact, marijuana is exceptionally good at that.
Hmm.
So, what comes up for me, and Kira, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I'm curious to hear both of your thoughts on this, but we'll start with Kira. Um, like, when somebody's removing that mask for the first time, when somebody's like starting to explore those emotions, what are some of the things that happen? And what are some of the tools that you may learn, like, in treatment initially, but you learn more and more with practice as you go that you start to implement. Um, just for anyone who might be like starting to explore that on their own.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of different things. A couple of key ones that I told myself in the beginning was reframing. So, in an instance of marijuana or any substance, it's the ability to change my thoughts from "I can't have this" to "I don't want this" or "I don't need this," and that I'm perfectly healthy and happy and okay without it. Um, and Sorry, this might be an editing piece because I just blanked a little bit. I got nervous.
You got this, Kira. It's all
Good.
good.
So, one other piece that I find extremely helpful is just taking a second to breathe, and that everything that we feel and experience passes. Rand is an incredible coach and teaches mindfulness. And that's one of the biggest tools that I experienced and learned from him right from the beginning is that, like, every single step I take, I'm here, I'm present. I can listen to the sounds and the smells and my tastes and find that my parasympathetic nerve is calming and this need to reach out for something else subsides. And the more that I practice that, the more that I realize I can do it on my own. And that an external piece, not only will it not help me in the long run, it actually makes it worse. I know that from practicing it over and over again, it's hard to see for someone new into it. But I've also found as well that my time in recovery, at first, being new into recovery, you really, really think about the short term and the short term gain, and not a lot about what happens after, the day after, the couple of hours after, when you're starting to feel the effects of it wearing off, which is the hard part in itself. And so being in recovery and building a life worth living, it's really wonderful to feel the greatness that comes from being without, and I can play the tape forward so much easier. I don't think about the short-term gain pretty much at all anymore. I think about my life that I have now, and should I play the tape forward, what the repercussions would be. It's very easy for me to see that.
And I think like whatever like that stress might look like, I think even in that moment there, whether we edit it out or not, um, had a moment where you're like, oh no, we're on this podcast. You know what? I need to take a beat. I need to take a breath. I need to practice those things that I learned and like reform my thoughts. Like, what do I actually need or want it to say in this moment?
Yeah.
Um, as somebody who like personally, like I'm not in recovery. That's not part of my journey, but something I struggle with quite a bit is social anxiety. And somehow I'm the podcast host, which is some cruel twist of fate. But um, something that I really struggled with is always like having that, like I pause and oh no, everyone's like judging me or like, what am I going to do now? And that's even happened hosting a couple of these. And one of those was with Dr. Amanda Tobe. She said, Jonathan, let's just take a breath and like go through it. Like, this doesn't matter. This isn't even live. You can edit it. Like, let's take a beat. Let's take a breath. Let's focus it on the thing we want to say. That was really cool. I appreciate that, Kira.
Well, I was really proud of Kira because I was just going to say, just take a breath, dear. And she figured that out herself. So, uh, and if I go back to what we were talking, what you had asked before, what when you take away or put someone in a position where they're losing their escape mechanism, you have to give them something that they can replace that with. And mindfulness and that emotional management piece that we always have with us is incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. And that was like a small example of like what could be, and Kira, I'm not trying to assign a feeling or ascribe a feeling, but of a small example of stress and like how we can respond. But let's talk about like coming back to work. You've had a lot of practice. You're coming back to work, or you're coming back to a family life. There are a lot of other stressors. When those stresses happen, that's like definitely for a lot of people like a relapse trigger.
Mhm.
What what tools, what systems do you chat about with people to help them understand all of the different stressors that happen through life and how like bringing cannabis or bringing other DOCs back in might not be might or might not be the right choice at that
I
time.
was just going to
Sure.
say something that brand teaches me a lot is embracing the monster. And one of the times that I was, so I'll be transparent as well. So, for the first bit of my recovery, actually, I struggled with. So my drug of choice was alcohol, and I thought that was the main culprit. And as long as I didn't have that, then everything else was okay. So actually, marijuana was a piece where like this is okay. It's not my drug of choice, and I faltered a little bit right in the beginning, and. One of the things that when I was removed substance, again, one of the things that Rand taught me was to embrace the monster, and take away, like, what can I learn from this? And I think, I don't know if Rand, if that's where you were going as well, but um,
Well, yeah, that embrace the monster piece is a Buddhist tool to use when we experience stress. And stress comes in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, and it always creates the same response. We don't feel safe. And evolutionarily, this goes back to when we were at risk of being eaten by animals bigger than us. Everything was something that we needed to guard ourselves against, and that hasn't changed. So, traffic, getting in trouble at work, not getting something done, all of those things create a stress response in us. And when we are stressed, we can't think properly. As soon as we don't feel safe in a situation, so whether it's social anxiety or whatever, it doesn't really matter what it is. Um, our brain changes. Our adrenal glands release cortisol. It pulls dopamine away from the front part of our brain, puts it into fight, freeze, flight, or fawn, and everything becomes about focusing on that stress and trying to get ourselves safe. And so, Embrace the Monster is a very interesting process where we recognize that I'm feeling anxious, or I don't feel safe, or that person in front of me should have bought signal lights for their car, or whatever. And we start to get activated. And so, Embrace the Monster, we look at that thought, that negative stimulus, and say, "Thanks for showing up. I'm going to give you a hug because you're here to help me. You're here to remind me to breathe, or to say my mantra, or whatever." It doesn't, everybody's different. You're going to have your own tool that works for you. But breathing is hopefully all, well, if you're not breathing, then it doesn't matter. Um, breathing is always with us, so that slow, controlled breath does what Kira talked about. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, turns off that stress response, and then we can think, oh, yeah, there's no wild bear in coming out of the bushes to try to kill me. I'm just annoyed at this person because they're ordering a coffee with 19 different ingredients with it, and it's going to take an hour, and I want to kill them. Or whatever, like, it doesn't really matter what it is. Anything that interferes with us creates a sense of, uh, I'm not safe. This isn't what I want. And recovery is really about learning how to embrace what's going on and look for the good in it, and get something out of it that's going to benefit for yourself. So while you're waiting for this person with the 19 ingredient coffee, maybe you can turn around and have a conversation with the person behind you, or smile at them, see if they'll smile back at you. I mean, there's options, and recovery is about getting engaged in life and finding good in it.
The one thing that I'm would love to hear more about from Rand too is that on the physical and mental side of things, even in the first like 30, 60 days, and with cannabis is what I love listening to Rand about, is what happens when you actually remove the substance and the differences that you truly do feel when you take it away. Because that's the case with all substances. I know it very well for alcohol. And yeah, I don't know if that's something that Jonathan you'd like to hear Rand chat about a little bit, but I think that's a really important piece to discuss, is the benefits that come, because I think a lot of people think that cannabis helps with my anxiety, cannabis helps with my sleep, it does X, Y, and Z, and I can't do these things without it. And the truth is that, and I said this before, is that for the most part, a lot of the time when we remove the substance, a lot of the things that we thought we had are not true, and that oftentimes it's the substance that causes it too.
So you want me to talk about that?
I don't know. Is there more to talk about? But I think I might have said it okay.
Sure. Well, so if we get into the physiology of cannabis a little bit, cannabis works on our endocannabinoid system, and our endocannabinoid system is a incredibly intricate uh, communication system that goes from our brain through our nervous system to our organs everywhere. And it is made up of a whole series of endocannabinoid receptors. And we have uh, a built-in cannabinoid in our bodies called anandamide. An anandamide is the neurochemical that creates the connection throughout that system. And and the half-life of anandamide is seconds. Uh, THC, which is the cannabinoid that is also can also activate that endocannabinoid system, has a long half-life, uh, uh, like 72-hour half-life and up to like 15 days of whole life. So when you start using that drug, it starts to plug up those endocannabinoid receptors. And there's a huge concentration of endocannabinoid receptors in our limbic system. So our hippocampus, our memory, our emotional response system, our hypothalamus, which controls uh, sleep and body functions, those kinds of things, have a high concentration of endocannabinoid receptors, but so do our lungs and our liver and our bladder, and all of those intricate body systems start to get impacted and start to slow down their capacity to do what they're supposed to do because they start to get plugged up. And when we stop using cannabis, um, those systems start to open up again and we start to feel differently. So, like I've worked with like thousands of teenagers who, uh, through a variety of discussions have decided to either stop or significantly cut down their cannabis use. And one of the things that I always do is get them to talk about what's changing in a positive way. Like there's always things we don't like about it, but one of the things that happens is they'll start to remember things better. I remember what I did at school yesterday. Uh, I can remember this conversation that I had. Uh, they'll, uh, uh, people use cannabis because they think it helps with anxiety. It actually makes their anxiety worse, and it actually weakens their capacity to manage anxiety because it's like paying somebody else to go to the gym for you. Like it weakens you and doesn't really do you any good, but we think that it is, so we keep doing it. One of the things it does in terms of sleep is it interferes with REM sleep, that dream sleep. And dream sleep is fundamental in helping us to resolve stress. And so if we're using that, and cannabis is good at initiating sleep, like it helps us get to sleep, but it really reduces sleep quality and we don't dream. And so when we wake up in the morning, we still have the, equivalent level of stress as we went to sleep with. And that sort of activates us to want to use more cannabis because I'm still feeling stressed or I'm still feeling anxious. Um, After about 10 or 12 days of stopping, all of these dreams that are stored up in this dream hard drive in your head start rolling out. And people will call me like, I'm having all these crazy dreams. What's going on? And I'll say, what's going on is your brain's getting better. Your brain's starting to be able to do what it's supposed to do, which is uh, use its incredible power to help you sort through stuff um, that you've been avoiding sorting through all the time that you've been using. I have long answers to questions, so.
That's what podcasts are for. That's great. I love that. And thank you for bringing that question up, Kira, and that wonderful answer, Rand. And one thing that comes up for me, you mentioned those teens that you've worked with and reflecting on this idea of embracing the monster. There are those moments of like extreme stress where that monster comes, like you feel like you're about to be like hunted by the bear, and that's just kind of like the thing that goes on. But also, there are lots of times where you experience like little bits of stress, like, like maybe you're thinking about the bear, or the bear is like a few miles away and you know you're in the forest. And I'm really interested about like what are some of the things that people notice, like maybe not when they're in that acute stress, but like how do you help to reframe people's tells, or like when they start to see those little bits of themselves come through as like either a positive thing or like as a moment to like this is that monster to embrace or the beginning of this monster to embrace.
Well, Kira talked about it a bit. Like learning to be present is a huge gift. As soon as we start thinking about the past or the future, we will start to feel stress because both of those things are absolutely out of our control. So, one of the things that I try and help people do is continually keep themselves in the present. And so, you know, what are you thinking about? If you're thinking about something that you can't do anything about, or you're thinking about something that's not true, that's going to affect how you feel. So, I mean, I have 4 questions I've been trying to get people to get tattooed on their arms for years. Is what you're thinking true? Is it really true? Because our brain creates stories that we start to pay attention to and react to, but they're not true. And then the third question is, how are you feeling or acting because of how you're thinking? And then the fourth question, which is really the seat of our power, is how would I feel if I changed the thought? Do I need to think this? And that moment of taking 2 or 3 breaths allows us to engage that beautiful prefrontal cortex where we can actually figure out, oh, I don't have to think that. I can think this instead.
It's really interesting because like I find when I'm like I'll use myself as the example again. When I'm in that moment of like real extreme stress and somebody says, if anybody were to say something just like just breathe or just calm down, you'd be like what the heck? But what that breathing or taking a beat allows you to do is to ask yourself that question and to explore what that shift would be. If you're not breathing at that time or breathing really quickly or you're stuck in that anxiety, you're not able to use your prefrontal cortex and actually like process what that shift could feel like.
One of the one of the assignments that Rand has me on continually is every hour or every 2 hours to set a timer for 2 or 3 minutes and just close my eyes and breathe. And at the same time, I have a mantra. And at the same time, also think of something that I'm grateful for and truly feel it. Um, and he always asks me after I do it for a couple of weeks, like, how are you feeling now? Better, always better.
But then you stop doing it.
Yeah. And then I got, I'm getting better. Yes, I go in and out, but yes, I do
Well,
start
and,
to.
and,
Never stops.
and so one of the really interesting things about recovery is recovery requires huge changes in how we're thinking and processing things. And we start doing all of this beautiful work, and then we start feeling better. And then we say, oh, I'm okay. And then we stop doing all of the stuff that we were doing. And then 2 weeks later, we're feeling crappy and we don't understand why. And and so, getting into the mindset of this is a continuous process for me, and I'm going to continue to feel better and better. Like, I've been in recovery for over 50 years, and I've every year I think I feel better than I did the year before. I understand things better. I get more out of stuff. I enjoy things more. Uh, my connections are deeper. It's a really beautiful process, but we need to continue to work on it if we want to, or we can plateau and just kind of stay where we're at. But to me, that's not a whole lot of fun.
Congratulations on over 50 years of recovery. That's incredible.
Well, it kept me alive.
A question I have, and probably our final question for today, and I'm curious to hear both of your thoughts. Like for people who are sober curious or recovery curious, or maybe they're California sober, as you said before, and again, they're listening to this, they're curious about what the monster might look like. What is your message to them?
Well, if you haven't tried something, try it. Like if you've never been drug and alcohol free, you have no idea what that's like. And so give that a shot, but you need to give it more than a couple of days, because a couple of days you're going to feel miserable. But like commit to a month. I really like some of these um, like dry January uh, things, or whatever people do to dry February because it's a shorter month. But uh, uh, to create the opportunity of seeing the other side, seeing the difference. But like I said before, you can't just take away the thing. You have to replace it with something that's potentially going to help you feel better. Uh, and I really liked what Kira brought up about the frequency of doing stuff. Like people will, well, I'm going to meditate in the morning, and they'll meditate for half an hour in the morning, but then they spend the next 18 hours letting stress build up. Uh, and so we need to be attentive to uh, keeping our stress levels down, like to be mindful. If something's starting to bother you, take a breath first and then think, what can I do about this?
Love that. What
Uh,
about you?
yeah. Um, my suggestion would be to talk to somebody else in recovery. To one to see that it's possible and that you're not alone. I tried to get in recovery for so many years, and I didn't really truly connect with anybody. But as soon as I did, and I realized that my shame, others feel it, and my story, others have it. That's incredibly huge. And Rand was one of those people to me. And I think too, like when you're talking to these individuals, and if you're talking to me or looking at me, if you could see me now, like I have a really big smile on my face. And Rand has always pointed out to me that I'm a very, very happy in recovery. And I thank Rand for that. Sorry. I'm very happy. Um, I wasn't like this before. I didn't have this in addiction. Like the life that I have now is exceptional. And I would never have dreamed of a life that I have now. And so just seeing that it's possible, I was very, very sick. Um, and knowing that you can get there, get out of it, the first couple of days, weeks, month might be hard, but every single day gets better as long as you work for it. Um, and so, yeah, I would say talk to somebody.
It sounds like there's that big piece that Rand was talking about first, where there's that big self reflection and like the breathing, and it's not just like a one and done in the morning. And then there's the piece about community and reaching out and talking to somebody in recovery and just looking to learn more. If you're recovery curious, if you're sober curious, if you're California sober, be curious and ask that question and get a better glimpse of what it's like. Rand, Kira, I've learned a hell of a lot today, and I really appreciate you both being here. This was wonderful. And if you out there are looking to listen to even more episodes of Five Facts, check it out on your favorite streaming platform. Rand and Kira, we will see you next time.